Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to continue the privacy and confidentiality part 3. I'm hoping to finish all these uh, topics in this video, but if it's get lengthier I will upload a fourth part. Thank you for responding to me that you are liking my Cmpa. I know it's very tough, I know it's very lengthy, but believe me, it's very important for you to crack the QE1 exam when you are talking about the ethical questions, and there will be no paper in which you don't get the ethics part. Ethics is always coming in your exam, and it always come in a highlighted portion. Then you will feel that you have the questions rather than all the other subjects. Sometimes you don't get the questions many from one subject or from another subject, but the ethical portion is always there. So without wasting any time, I'm going to start from the mandatory reporting. I have finished my share information video for just the second part. Go check it out if you haven't, but you can resume from there or this video. Okay, so mandatory reporting. In Canada, provisional, territorial, and federal statutory requirements mandate that physician must report patients who meet specific criteria for appropriate agencies. What we were talking about here, we were talking about basically the confidentiality. That means we do not tell the patient's information to anybody else when that person is not in the circle of care. And that's the one thing which is very important, and that we talk about personal health information, and it's our duty, ethical and moral duty, not to tell about our patients. But there are some cases where definitely breaching the confidentiality is much more safer choice than keeping the confidentiality. So one of the thing is, we talk about driver's license, we talk about patients who are being abusive, we talk about child abuse stuff. So those things we have to reveal to the specific peoples. It depends on where you work. It is a provisional, it's a federal one. In some instant, if the physician fails to report confidential information to the public authorities, thereby fulfill the statutory obligations, the physician may be prosecuted, fined, or face imprisonment. The mandatory reporting requirement is in the interest of protecting the public. So this is the simple example. Let's suppose if you have a patient with epilepsy, uncontrolled, non-compliance with the medications, is still driving a school bus, and you haven't told the transport authority that this patient is not supposed to be driving, especially as a school bus, and after 4 months or after 4 weeks you find a news that this driver had an accident, and that leads to maybe death or injuries of some of the kids. And then when they will review the patient's chart, and they will figure out, oh, this is the doctor who did not mention it, and nobody revoked their license. So that's the one thing happens. That's why it's very important. If you fail to do that, you are going to face the prison or fined. Some examples of mandatory reporting situations include a child in need of protection to prevent physical, sexual, emotional harm, neglect, or abandonment. Anything which is related to a child, no matter what the age of the child is, no matter what the parents say, no matter what the mother says, if child needs protection, go for it. Usually we go with the child protective services, which is the most important place where we talk about child. We breach the child's confidentiality to save the child. Concerns about patient's fitness to drive, car, plane, train, boats requirement vary by provisions and territory. No matter what kind of things they are, if you see, oh, patient is having hypoglycemia events 3 times a week, patient does not eat well, patients are on insulin, and they are driving a boat with their family, you are still responsible. It depends. So that's the one thing which you have to make sure that it's a mandatory reporting. And certain communicable diseases, I would say usually in this place they are saying that doctors is responsible to report, but what happens is when someone is being diagnosed with some kind of conditions, and the lab usually directly send it to the public health. But if they haven't been done, which you cannot assume, you have to do it. You have to call the public health. You have to tell that this patient is TB positive, this patient is XYZ positive, which is communicable, and other stuffs. Physicians should be aware of the regulatory authorities' policies for mandatory reporting. To support interesting physician-patient relationship, physicians should notify patients of their duty to report when appropriate to do so. Let's suppose if you see fitness to drive, you told the patients, oh, I'm recommending you not to drive, and it's better that you seize your license, or you cancel your license, and this is, no doctor, I'm fine. Then you'll say, sorry, but I have to do it, I will do it. And if they says no, 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 don't do it, this is the breach of confidentiality, the other stuff, you have to tell them and remind them this is your duty to report. No matter what they say, you will be doing it if they don't do it by themselves. Just giving an option will be a good for you to build a trust and maintain the trust. But if they choose not to do it, then go for it. If fulfilling a duty to report required disclosure to personal health information, physician will not generally be faulted for breaching confidentiality if they make their report in a good faith. This information provided should generally be limited only to the requirement of the purpose of the report. Legislations establish a duty to report typically protects physician from liability for reports made in a good faith. But I think one of the things which you have to understand is when this is limiting to the requirement, this is a very important question. Let's give me an example. Patient is having epilepsy, but patient is having Cmpa positive. You don't have to tell the whole story to the transport peoples. Oh, patient is having epilepsy and the Cmpa positive. Don't give them a license. That does not make sense. Just say patient has epilepsy, uncontrolled, non-compliance, or maybe not good for the driving at this point because of the medical conditions, because of some conditions. You don't have to tell them. So it depends. You don't have to provide more than enough information, but you have to provide enough information for them to make a decision. So it's always a decision you have to make on the spot according to the individual's conditions, according to the individual situation, and to whom you're trying to talk. Because transport people doesn't have doctors like when they're reading it in the first place. If they want to reassess, they want to go for it, they do have some people in the medical perspective they can talk, but the first person who will receive your letter will not be probably a medical person. So you should know what to tell them and where to tell them. Permissive reporting. This reporting means it's not mandatory, but if you do it, it's very good. There are circumstances in law and ethics in which it is permissible but not mandatory for physician to disclose confidential patient's information. Disclosure to prevent. Why we do these things? Why we allow the doctors to make a choice? Because it will prevent and harm. Depends on where the harm looks like. Arising from the decision by Supreme Court of Canada in the landmark case Smith v. Jones, physicians are permitted to disclose confidential information to the relevant authority in the interest of public safety if all of the following conditions are present. There's a clear risk of an identifiable person or a group of persons. The risk is one of the serious bodily harm or death, and the danger is imminent. So this is a very common thing. If a psychiatric patient come to you, oh, I'm going to kill my boss today. How they gonna kill it? This is clear risk because boss is not good at work or not happy with me. What is the risk? Patient's boss can be died. And the danger is imminent means, oh, I'm going to mix some kind of poison in their drink and then give it to them, kind of a thing. So you have to make sure your patients, I just like to kill my boss, but they don't have a plan. They're not doing it today, tomorrow. You don't have to do it. But to prevent the harm, to prevent the death of the boss, it's important that you talk to someone, and because it's a public safety issue. The permission to disclose confidential for patients' information for the purpose of warning a third party is also recognized in the privacy legislation of all Canadian jurisdictions. If time permits, physicians are encouraged to seek specific advices and legal counsels in individual situation concerning the appropriateness and scope of the disclosure of the information relevant to the public safety. Physicians should disclose only sufficient information to prevent the harm. It is advisable to document any disclosure you make along with the reasons. This is something I feel like this is the one thing which is very conflicted, and it should not be a question in a QE1 in a way that what you're going to do, because it depends where you are practicing and what the things looks like. But if there is a way that they ask you, will you report it or will you not report it, or will you report it with the reason, or will you report it without documenting and without reasoning, then you have to choose the option. You will report it with the proper documents and with the reasoning. So that is the one thing you have to do it in a permissible reports when you have all the three things are available. So make sure whatever the option you choose, it should be telling you three things: documenting, disclosures, you disclose something, you document it, and you make the reason along with it. Next is breach of the confidentiality, which is a very, very, very important topic. A privacy breach is typically described as an unauthorized access, use, or disclosure of public health information. Breach most often originates with an arbitrary release of public health information without proper patient's authorization. Other unintentional breaches results from unguarded conversations of misdirection communication containing personal health information. Deliberated breach such as inappropriate accessing of patient's personal health information may also occur, like snooping. Oh, you have a patient over there. That's very interesting. Or maybe that patient is a celebrity. Let me snoop and see what's their diagnosis looks like. Oh, they have a chlamydia. They might be having some kind of a, high risk sexual activity kind of a thing. So that snooping is also one of the inappropriate thing. Healthcare provider who are unclear about whether they should access information and should ask themselves two questions. Do I need this information to provide the care to the patients? If you are not in the circle of care, don't do it. If you are in the circle of care, do you really think about that it's going to change your management plan, or do you have the patient's concern implied or expressed to access the information, which is very important. If the answer of either of the question is not certain, it would be prudent to obtain an express concern before accessing the release of any information. So you don't have to say, oh, 10 years ago patient had a chlamydia and patient's partner was XYZ. You don't have to do that, because you're not going to change anything what happened 10 years ago. But if you want to know how many times patient had chlamydia and you want to access that information, ask the patient, can I get the access of those information? Do you have the consent from me? So these are the things you have to think about. Most privacy states in Canada is also required reporting a privacy breach to the affected individuals, the privacy commissioner, regulated authorities, and possible all three. It depends where you are working, but usually if some kind of breach happens, make sure at least patient should be aware about it. Risk of breaching privacy when using videos and photos. Use medical stories and photos for clinical finding has long been a mainstay of the medical education. This practice, terms as secondary use of personal health information, may constitute a breach of privacy. Even de-identified videos and photographs may lead to identifications of the patients by those who know them or who digital files are used through their metadata. Even when de-identified photos, x-rays, EKGs, and other results are considered for personal health information, express concerns for their use and sharing with the sort before they are used for medical, educational, promotional material or research. Videos and photos, first thing, don't try to do it in your own phone, because you never know who's going to access your phone, where your phone saved the things, and this is not appropriate. Second thing, if you really need to do it, ask the patient, tell the patients why you are doing it, tell the patients that we're going to delete it as soon as possible, we finish the job. Third thing, which is kind of a situation where you will say, oh, I'm going to share it with one of my colleague or one of my preceptor, I want to know things, I want to send it to the specialist, is that okay with you? If they do it, just document it. Then if that pictures keep circulating, even though you just send it to the dermatologist, then you are not being liable. So that's the one thing. Communicating with patients electronically, communications with the colleagues electronically, and using social media. I will make another video of this. Stay on my channel and let me know how you think about these videos. I know Cmpa is a very big website. There's a lot of things to read. There's a lot of things to understand. I have tried to do the good practice first and then go to the e-learnings. But if anybody who thinks that e-learning is one of their top priority to do it, let me know. I can go first there, and then I'll resume all the other topics, because good practice is a very huge, and unfortunately with my residency it's sometimes tough for me to upload few of it, but I'll try my best. Thank you so much for listening to my video, and do give me a comment and let me know what do you think about the next topic. Bye.